For 50 years, Dorothy believed she knew everything about her husband. Every habit, every quirk, every secret. She was wrong. What she discovered at 75 years old didn't just end her marriage, it rewrote 5 decades of her life. And the most terrifying part? He wasn't careless, he was meticulous. This is the story of a betrayal so perfectly executed, it survived half a century. Picture this, you've been married for 50 years, half a century with the same person. You know how he takes his coffee. You know the exact spot on his shoulder that aches when it rains. You've raised children together, buried parents together, survived everything life could throw at two people. At 75, Dorothy Mitchell believed there were no surprises left. Her marriage to Raymond wasn't perfect, whose is after 50 years, but it was solid, built on routine, shared history, and the quiet confidence that comes from choosing the same person day after day for 18,000 days. Monday mornings started the same way. Friday nights ended the same way. Anniversaries arrived like clockwork, each one a testament to their endurance. Dorothy had stopped questioning things long ago. That was her first mistake. Because what destroyed her world didn't announce itself. There was no confession over dinner, no lipstick on a collar, no suspicious phone call. Just a small detail that didn't fit. But here's where it gets strange. It started with a health insurance form. Dorothy was handling some paperwork after Raymond's knee surgery, routine stuff, the kind of administrative tasks that come with aging bodies and multiplying medications. She was updating their beneficiary information when she noticed something odd. A name she didn't recognize listed as an emergency contact from 3 years ago. Rebecca Whitmore. Not a relative, not a colleague Dorothy had ever heard Raymond mention. Just a name sitting there in black and white with a phone number that had a different area code. Dorothy stared at it. Her first thought was simple, clerical error. Medical offices mix up files all the time, especially with common last names. Mitchell is everywhere. But here's the thing about small inconsistencies. They're like loose threads. Once you notice one, you start seeing others. She pulled out their tax returns, thinking she'd confirm it was just a filing mistake. That's when she found the second anomaly. A mailing address in Columbus, Ohio, a city Raymond had supposedly visited quarterly for regional sales conferences for the past 2 decades. Dorothy had never questioned it. Raymond worked in pharmaceutical sales. Conferences were part of the job. Sometimes he'd be gone 3-4 days at a time. She'd trusted him. But now, looking at this address, not a hotel, not a conference center, but a residential street, something cold settled in her chest. What happened next would unravel everything. Dorothy didn't confront Raymond, not yet. At 75, she'd learned something crucial. Emotional reactions get you honesty. Strategic patience gets you truth. So she began to reconstruct time. She pulled out calendars going back years, the paper ones she'd kept in the kitchen drawer, marked with Raymond's travel schedule. She cross-referenced their credit card statements, the ones that came to their home address. And that's when the pattern emerged. Every 3rd month, like clockwork, Thursday through Sunday, always Columbus, always the same explanation, regional quarterly review. But the credit card statements showed something different. No hotel charges, no conference center payments, no restaurant receipts near any business district. Instead, grocery stores, hardware stores, a veterinary clinic. A veterinary clinic. They didn't have pets. Raymond was allergic to cats and indifferent to dogs. They'd never owned an animal in 50 years of marriage. Dorothy's hands trembled as she typed the address into Google Maps. It was a house. A 2-story colonial with blue shutters and a white fence, the kind of place that screamed family home. Street view showed a tire swing in the front yard. What Dorothy discovered next didn't just shock her, it revealed the architecture of a deception so systematic it had to be intentional. She hired a private investigator, not because she wanted to, but because at this point, not knowing felt more dangerous than knowing. The investigator's name was Vincent Shaw, a retired police detective who specialized in domestic clarification cases. He was blunt during their first meeting at a coffee shop 2 towns over. Mrs. Mitchell, in my experience, when the pattern is this clean, it's not an affair. Affairs are messy. This is something else." He was right. 3 weeks later, Vincent handed her a folder. Inside, photographs, documents, a timeline that made her 50 years of marriage feel like a performance she'd been unknowingly starring in. Raymond had another wife. Her name was Diane Whitmore. She was 72. They'd been together for 47 years. 47 years. Not a secret girlfriend, not a midlife crisis hidden in shame. A whole other marriage, another household, another set of vows. But here's where it gets worse. There were children. 3 of them, adults now in their 40s with children of their own. Rebecca, the name Dorothy had seen on the insurance form, was Raymond's daughter, their daughter. Dorothy stared at photos of family barbecues she'd never attended, Christmas mornings she'd never witnessed, graduations, weddings, grandchildren, an entire genealogy that existed parallel to her own life. While she'd been setting the table for 2, Raymond had been setting another table for 5. The investigator's voice cut through her spiral. There's more. What devastated Dorothy most wasn't the existence of Diane and the children. It was the precision. This wasn't a double life maintained through chaos and close calls. It was engineered. Raymond worked in pharmaceutical sales, a job that required regional travel. But here's what Dorothy discovered. He'd specifically requested the Ohio Territory 23 years ago. He'd designed his career around his deception. His quarterly conferences, blocked off months in advance on shared calendars, predictable, unchallengeable. His explanations, consistent across decades, the same phrases, the same reasoning, delivered with the same casual confidence. He'd trained both households to expect his absences. In Dorothy's home, he was the dedicated salesman climbing the corporate ladder. In Diane's home, he was the devoted husband whose work demanded sacrifice. Neither woman questioned him because he'd made himself unquestionable. But the investigator found something else. Financial records showed Raymond had been meticulous there too. Separate bank accounts, both legitimate. He wasn't stealing from one family to fund the other. He was earning enough to sustain both. Child support? Never needed. He was present, rotating between families like shifts at a factory. Dorothy realized something that made her stomach turn. This wasn't a man who made a mistake and was too weak to fix it. This was a man who made a choice and was strong enough to sustain it for 50 years. When Dorothy finally confronted Raymond, she didn't bring tears. She brought evidence. It was a Tuesday evening. He'd just returned from a sales trip to Indianapolis, which the investigator confirmed was actually 4 days in Columbus with Diane and the grandchildren. Dorothy placed the folder on the kitchen table. "I need you to look at this," she said quietly. Raymond opened it. His face didn't change immediately. He was too practiced for that. But she watched as the color drained slowly, like water leaving a tub. Photos of him with Diane. Photos of him with children who had his eyes. Copies of property records showing a house in Columbus under his name. Timeline documents showing 50 years of coordinated absences. Dorothy didn't yell. She didn't cry. She didn't ask why because she knew that question had no answer that would matter. Instead, she said, "I'm not angry. I'm not even hurt anymore. I'm just done." Raymond tried to speak. She held up his hand. "You don't get to explain this. There is no explanation. You made a choice every single day for 50 years. You renewed this decision every morning you woke up, every time you kissed me goodbye, every anniversary card you signed. I want you out by Friday." Dorothy didn't rebuild from nothing. She rebuilt from truth. The divorce was swift. Her children, who'd discovered they had half-siblings they'd never known, were devastated but supportive. Some relationships with extended family fractured, others deepened. Raymond moved to Columbus permanently. Dorothy heard through mutual acquaintances that Diane had left him too once she learned the truth. Both families shattered, all because one man believed he could sustain 2 worlds forever. Dorothy sold the house, too many memories that now felt like lies. She moved to a smaller place near her daughter. At 76, she started over. Not because she had to, because she chose to. People asked her how she survived it, how she moved forward after 50 years of deception. Her answer was always the same. Endurance is not the same as acceptance. I endured a lie for 50 years, but I refused to accept it for 50 years and 1 day. Dorothy's story isn't just about betrayal. It's about the power of choosing yourself, even when it feels impossible. What would you do in her situation? Let me know in the comments. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more stories about resilience, truth, and the strength it takes to start over. Thanks for watching.